All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Kara Marslag, your Talent Management Advisor. We have a few guests today to bring us this Mind the Gap session all about retraining, right? First-term airmen and NCO retraining programs. And we'll also hit on exception to policy and retraining outside of those programs as well. So without further ado, I will introduce our guest, Senior Master Sergeant Anthony Hawkins. Welcome.
Thanks, Sergeant Marslag. So, I am your guys' Career Assistance Advisor at Beale Air Force Base here, and with me is my team, the RecU staff. I have Staff Sergeant Zachary, the Notorious Big, and Staff Sergeant Taylor Hot Sauce White, my Wing Airman Development NCOIC, and my FTAC NCOIC. So together we form this team, a little triad, if you will, and we handle professional development and retraining things in and around the base. So specifically for me as your Career Assistance Advisor, I'm going to serve as your subject matter expert on all things related to retraining. You guys can come and talk to me. I will hook you guys up. We're in a little bit different situation, like you guys have the Talent Management Advisor from the ISRG, and she helps you guys out within the intel community and is also there to like provide you guys some career guidance. But that big overall Air Force retraining and all that stuff, that's what I'm here to help you guys with. So please utilize me as a resource in addition to your Talent Management Advisor, Sergeant Marslag. So with that, the Career Assistance Advisor gig, it's a developmental special duty. I'm an aircraft maintainer by trade, an avionics guy. I'm only sitting in this seat till 2022, maybe 2023, we'll see. And then I've hired my two assistants, so with that I'll turn it over to Staff Sergeant Vig to introduce himself.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Staff Sergeant Vig. I am an aviation resource manager by trade, but I am now the Wing Airman Development NCOIC. Just got hired back in July of 2020, so this is a one-year gig. So if you're interested in doing this, we'll be advertising for this job here in June of 2021. But what I do here is I help out Senior Hawkins with all of his PEZs he has going on, NCO PEZ, Senior NCO PEZ, along with assisting Staff Sergeant White with their FTAC needs. So without further ado, I'll let Sergeant White take the reins.
Hey, everyone. This is Staff Sergeant Taylor White, your friendly neighborhood FTAC NCOIC. So I've probably seen some of you before in class, or I've worked with some of you for your troops to make sure they're squared away. I am basically in this position for about another month and a half, so we're going to be advertising my spot in a few weeks here from PCS out to Korea. Very excited. But working with these guys is a massive privilege, so keep your eyes peeled if you want to be a part of helping first-term airmen become prepared for what they should expect from the Air Force, their base, and their supervisors specifically. So that's my gist. You want to give it back to Senior Hawkins. Oh, no, I'm going to give you guys a little brief overview about what we're going to cover today. So first off, we're going to do first-term airman retraining, and then we're going to talk about the NCORP, the NCO retraining program, and then go over the retraining advisory real quick, as well as the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory, and also the additional retraining options that are available to you. And after that, we're going to have some time to open it up for some quick Q&A to answer your guys' individual questions.
All right, everyone. So with that, the first-term airman retraining program. What is it? How does it work? And what is it designed to do? Well, the first-term airman retraining program exists for a couple reasons. We want to retain you. If you guys are unhappy with your chosen paths in the Air Force as first-term airmen, when you guys were at the recruiter's office and we talked about you coming into the Air Force and you sat down with the recruiter, they talked to you guys about being able to retrain. Okay. It is more cost-effective for the Air Force to retain you as a first-term airman and retrain you into another career field than it is to take someone off the street and train them to be an airman all over again and then transition into a career field, right? So you guys already have a leg up because you know how to airman. It's an opportunity for you guys to pursue a different career path. You don't have to, if you're not finding job satisfaction within your career field that you're in right now, you have this opportunity to find a different path and see if it works for you. The upside to that is that, you know, maybe you don't feel like you have job satisfaction with where you're at right now, but you do like the Air Force. It just feels like this isn't a good fit based on whatever circumstances, personality, intrinsic value, all kinds of things like that can influence the airman's reason why they want to retrain. So here's your options, right? So you have to apply for first-term airman retraining within your window. For 4-year enlistees, that window is the 35th to the 43rd month. And for 6-year enlistees, it's the 59th to the 67th month. Now, there are some exceptions and extenuating sets of circumstances that come into play with that. But the thing that you guys need to walk away with and understand is that there is not a person on earth who can prevent a first-term airman from retraining in their window. Not a squadron superintendent, squadron commander, your career field manager, no, your flight chief. No one can prevent you from being able to retrain within your retraining window as long as you are applying right there in the window. So a lot of times what happens when people come through my office, right, there's like all this tribal knowledge about, oh, we're critically manned, and there are no quotas for first-term airmen to retrain. See, it says 0. Like, none of that is true. I'm here to dispel those rumors for you guys, okay? When it comes to your retraining window, you guys hold the keys to the kingdom. Just have to make sure that you apply in your window. Now, I mentioned no quotas out for first-term airmen. If you guys have seen the retraining advisory, and Sergeant Vig's going to show it to you a little bit later on if you haven't, you'll notice that there aren't any retraining quotas out for first-term airmen. And there's a reason why, and Sergeant Vig's going to explain that to you later, but just so that you know, that does not mean that you can't retrain, okay? Now, the other thing that might be an exception or a rule that might need to be met that would prevent a first-term airman from retraining is a medical condition. So ladies, if you're out there, if you become pregnant during your retraining window and now you have assignment limitation codes because you're on maternity leave and recovering from having the baby, and your retraining window elapsed. On the back end of that, you can say, hey, I had this code on me because I was pregnant, and then had my post-baby code, and now it's lifted. My retraining window expired while I was pregnant. Please consider me as a first-term airman retraining in my window, which is totally a reason to do an exception to policy to be considered as a first-term airman outside of these windows. You know, same thing goes for like a broken wrist, a broken leg, or something that interfered medically with you being able to retrain during your window that is now cleared. We can do an exception to policy and we can get you hooked up. So, said no one can prevent a first-term airman from retraining, except for one person, the first-term airman. And here's how you guys disqualify yourself. Your job satisfaction's low. You don't have the right motivation, so your duty performance suffers. And as a result of that, you get an EPR that is below a meets. Well, if you have an EPR that's below a meets, guess what, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to be able to retrain, because if you're not able to meet the standard as far as your supervisors are concerned on your EPR, you ain't going to be able to retrain into another AFSC. It's the way the cookie crumbles. Wow, we've been out here wilding and door dashing and Uber Eatsing it up over the COVIDs because we couldn't eat in restaurants and all the good stuff, right? People door dashing meals and all that. And the gyms might have been closed or restricted, And as airmen, some airmen have grown, not up, but out over the course of the past year with lack of PT and bad eating habits. So the PT test is coming back around. Another thing that you can do to disqualify yourself from retraining as a first-term airman is failing your PT test. If you are not on a pass, you will not be able to retrain as a first-term airman in your window. Something else you got to be concerned with, which hopefully it does not happen, but if there's legal action pending against you, UCMJ-wise, that you're on an assignment limitation code under investigation by OSI, things like that, that will prevent you from being able to retrain. Now, if those matters clear, you know, and you had the code on you while you were in your window, but now everything's good, OSI has finished their investigation, whatever legal issue is gone, and it doesn't have further repercussions, your money. We can go back and we can do those exception policies and say, during this time frame, this is what was going on with Airman so-and-so. Please consider them as a first-term airman retraining in their window. Lots of little nuances up in there to include, like DROS. If you're coming from an overseas location and your DROS didn't line up, and you come to Beale and your DROS didn't match your retraining window, and now you're here, you can come and talk to me, and I can help get you retrained and considered as an airman retraining in their window. So things are exceptions to policy. Exceptions to policy have to be unique sets of circumstances for airmen to be able to retrain outside of their window. So if you come to Sergeant Hawkins, or you see Sergeant Vig in here or Sergeant White because I'm not around, and you say, hey, my retraining window expired 4 months ago, they're going to ask you how come you didn't apply for retraining in your window. You're like, oh, I just forgot. Or I looked back at my retraining window was during this time frame. There's nothing we can really do to help you out at that point. So the circumstances for an exception have to be extenuating, and they have to be circumstances that airmen across the Air Force don't experience and that are unique to this particular situation. Okay? During first-term airman retraining, and NCORP for that matter, every year in August, the retraining advisory updates. So as first-term airman, as long as you have not reenlisted, you are a first-term airman. So it doesn't matter if you're a staff sergeant, first-term airman, a senior airman, an A1C, possibly even a tech sergeant in certain extenuating circumstances, you're still a first-term airman, okay? So just remember that. Remember your windows. 4-year enlistees, 35 to 43, 6-year enlistees, 59 to the 67th month. I'm going to talk to you guys about NCORP, the NCO retraining program. It happens in three phases. Phase 1 is all volunteer. It started in August when that brand new retraining advisory dropped on my PERS. Once that retraining advisory drops, it shows objectives out for NCOs from staff sergeant all the way up to senior master sergeant. So if your AFSC was identified with having overages in staff sergeant to senior master sergeant, you would see that underneath your AFSC and then that respective rank column, right? For NCOs, you need to be concerned with your projected pay grade. So if you're a staff and you made tech, you want to be looking at that tech column. If you're a senior airman who is re-enlisted and now you are a career airman and you have a line number for staff, you can look at that staff sergeant column, okay? And so on and so forth. Your current grade or your projected grade. And you have to have re-enlisted in order to participate in NCORP. So those AFSCs are identified with overages, and you'll see the number there that says how many they need to get out of the AFSC, okay? At that point, if there's 5, that means that we're over 5 across the board in the, we'll say, 1 in 4 community. So 5 1 in 4 staff sergeants need to retrain. That could be any 5. Once the Air Force meets its quota for the staff sergeants to retrain out, there won't be any spots out for staff sergeants, right? But the retraining program itself is based on in quotas, which brings us to phase 2. Who here has heard of force retraining? Yeah, I know you two have for sure. So force retraining. It's a little myth about force retraining that I'd like to dispel. It does not just happen. People don't just get force retrained. So back in phase 1, when we were looking for volunteers to retrain out because we were over, the Air Force's program is based on the ends. So if we haven't enough ends and there wasn't enough people to retrain out of AFSCs, what happens is the Air Force starts looking at those people that still have outs and starts giving people brand new jobs because we're over. All right? So under phase 1, people had the option to pick a job and take those slots away out of their AFSC and fill slots in. In phase 2, if we still are showing ends, they're going to start doling out brand new AFSCs. Mandatory, right? And at that point, people have options. If you get hit with mandatory retrain because you have overages and we're still trying to meet the ends, you have to get retainability no matter what to retrain. So if it's completely up to the member whether they decide to get the retainability to stay in the Air Force and go into the new AFSC or not. You know, at that point you can be like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not gonna retrain. Thanks for all you did, Air Force. And the Air Force is gonna be like, thank you for your service, and that'll be that. Okay, that started on the 1st of December of 2020. Now, what I want NCOs to be aware of around Bill Air Force Base is the open season that's going to start on 1 Feb this year. Phase 3, the last phase of the NCO retraining program. I told you guys that the retraining program is based on ends. So, in phase 3 on 1 Feb, if there are still in quotas and we haven't met our metrics, the Air Force then opens it back up to AFSCs who have objectives out still. You don't have to submit any kind of letter or anything. You can go back in and volunteer under phase 3 if you still have outs for your AFSC and staff sergeant to senior master sergeant. Now, if you are in a balanced career field, meaning you have no out objectives for your AFSC, under the rules of phase 3 and open season, you are allowed to apply for any AFSC that has an in quota based on your projected or your current rank, or your current rank or your projected rank, right? As an exception to policy. So you do have to fill out a letter, but you are able to apply for NCORP even if you don't have out objectives for your AFSC. Okay? That is going to start on February 1st. So look at your AFSCs, NCOs, look at your ranks. See if you have out objectives come February 1st. If you do, you can go back and volunteer for anything that has an in. And if you don't have an objective out, you can volunteer as an exception to policy and draft a letter to fill one of those slots for in objectives. All right. And that is the first term airmen and NCO retraining programs in a nutshell. I'm going to pass this mic to Staff Sergeant Big.
Sweet. All right. So here you are, first term airman in your window now, right? You go into MyPERS, you click the button requesting to retrain. So what's going to happen there, right, is AFPC is going to verify that you are eligible to retrain. They're going to shoot you an email if you are eligible. They're going to say, hey, Airman Smith, you have 60 days to submit your application to retrain. So once all that mumbo jumbo happens, you see what jobs you want. This is essentially a ranking system of how they rank their applicants when you're submitting your retraining, right? So they're gonna look at your most recent EPRs, your current grade, projected grade, your next two EPRs, data rank, your total active federal military service, and then your ASVAB scores, right? So this is a pretty critical component because oftentimes we get members who come into our office who want to go into contracting, LRS, and they do not have an adequate ASVAB score. So you guys need to look at the AFECD, which will have the qualifications for ASVAB scores, along with any other furthering qualifications, as in you might need a medical exam, or you might have to lift, 100 pounds over your head, or have a flight line driver's license, something along those natures. So definitely look into those ASVAB scores. And then the number 8 is going to be your AFSC preferences. So an example of this, right? Say if we have an Airman Smith and Airman Jones here. They have an identical 1 through 7. I'm talking the ASVAB scores are almost the same. They joined the Air Force around the same time. But Airman Smith has contracting as number 3, and Airman Jones has it on number 5. Well, the person who has it ranked number 3 is more than likely going to get this retraining because it came down to that 8th factor there. Anything I missed there, Sergeant Hawkins? Nothing. Sweet. So here's going to be the out quotas for your career field. So this is talking mostly to our NCORP peeps here, right? So as you see, we have the 2 Alpha, 514B. We have 5 out objectives. So that means that they're going to start doing those first 3 phases there: the volunteer phase, the mandatory phase, and then the open season. So let's see. My bad. It's like mad blurry on my screen. I apologize. So if you look on the right hand side next to the advisory notes there, you'll see like 416, 424, 933. Those are going to be specific notes there you guys can look up in the AFECD. Are going to be limitations to when applying to that career field, as in say if you're trying to cross into a medical career field, some medical career fields only allow other medical career fields to cross-train into that. Can you go over to the end quotas for me, actually? So this is going to be more to what I'm actually talking about here. So if you're a first-term airman, right, you're going to look under the first-term airman tab. You see the 1 Alpha 1. You see there's 40 in objectives. You're going to scroll way to the right. You're going to look at this advisory note 424 in the AFECD. And make sure that advisory note that you can still apply for that job with the notes annotated there. Also, for the end objectives for the staff sergeant and tech sergeant. So let's say they go through these first 2 phases here, right? It's the open season phase. You've seen that your career field has some out objectives, and then you see the in objectives for, say we have 4 techs for the 1 Alpha 6. This is going to be the time when you would go into MyPERS and start applying for those career fields. I think that's about it, Sergeant Hawkins. All you, sir.
All right, so Sergeant Vig touched on that Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory as it relates to things you need to know when you're trying to retrain. That will have information about the notes, but additionally also on the retraining advisory, you can click on those too, and they will highlight and let you know exactly what the notes mean. It's also available to you in the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory. So while you're doing your research and figuring out what job do I want to retrain into, and you see all these AFSCs with the in objectives, you need to be concerned about whether or not you're going to hit that eligibility window or eligibility to begin with, because AFPC is going to vet you before they even tell you to apply based on your ASVAB score. Right? So in the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory, the AFECD, you can go on MyPERS, type in that acronym, AFECD, and you'll download the 31 October, not 2021, that's my fault, 2020 version. There will be a 2021 version later, so maybe I'm just predicting the future, right? Maybe, I don't know. But 2020 version, download that. And paragraph 3.5.1 and 3.5.2, that is going to tell you what the requirements are physically or whether you might need a high school diploma in advance and kind of give you a heads up of what's probably going to be on your application. Specifically pay attention to attachment 4 in the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory, because that is what is going to have whatever the ASVAB score is required to go into that AFSC. So mechanical, admin, general, and electrical. It's going to tell you whatever that magical number is that you have to have on your ASVAB to go into that AFSC. So you look at that, pull up virtual MPF, go to the education and training tab, verify your ASVAB scores before you even put that AFSC on the list of things that you want to retrain into. And if you go far enough in advance and do a little bit of research and figure out, okay, well, I'm not eligible based on my ASVAB scores, you can go and retake the ASVAB with the education center. But there's one thing that you have to remember when it comes to retaking the ASVAB. Sergeant Vig, what is that?
If you retake the ASVAB and you score lower than your initial exam, the Air Force keeps your most current scores.
So a horror story I want to share with you guys. I had this airman come in, first-term airman came into the office. He wanted to retrain. We determined what his scores needed to be for his ASVAB, if he was going to retake it. He did not prepare as well as he should have. And then he went and took the ASVAB and got new ASVAB scores. Now, the score he was shooting for, he improved his score by like 4 points, but he still missed the bar by 3 points for the AFSC that he was trying to go into. And because he desperately was trying to get away from maintenance, he purposely tanked his mechanical and electrical scores. He was only trying to improve his general and admin if he could. So anything mechanical and electrical, boom, dropped. Because he was like, forget it, I'm not worried about that section. Well, when he came to my office and we looked at his scores and realized, oh man, you didn't qualify for the job that you were shooting for, he was like, well, I still want to retrain. Couldn't help him because my man's ASVAB scores had tanked, and now he disqualified himself from retraining into anything else but the job that he was already in. So, lesson learned. If you guys go retake the ASVAB, take it seriously and do not just think that, oh, I only need to improve this one score. Whatever your scores are after you retake the test, those are your scores. Done deal. So, make sure that you do your research. Go look at the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory, pull it off my purse, look at paragraph 3.5.1 and 3.5.2, attachment 4. That's going to be your ticket to make sure that you're eligible for an AFSC before you even put it on the sheet to pick an AFSC. And on that tip, you guys can choose up to 5 AFSCs to retrain into for NCORP and for first-term airmen, up to 5. Does that mean that all 5 blocks have to be filled out? Absolutely not. If your heart is set on 1, 2, or 3 jobs and you are really good if you get one of those 3 jobs, cool. Put those 3 only. They do not all have to be filled out just for the sake of filling them out. So if you're down to, spot 4 and 5 or like the last spot or whatever, and you're like, man, I don't care. I'm just going to do anything. I got to fill this spot in. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you only want to do 1 job, put 1. If you only want to do 2, put 2. If you only want to do 3, put 3. If you're willing to do any 5 and you're good with them, put all 5. The only thing that I would caution when it comes to, volunteering for 1 or 2 jobs is that if you come to me and we talk about your retraining options and the AFSC that you're looking at only has 1 or 2 spots, I'm definitely going to tell you to have a backup. Because, like Sergeant Biggs said earlier, he broke that board down, right? If there's 8 of you guys across the Air Force that are competing for 2 slots, they're going to board you. And I don't have any kind of visual or oversight over what other people's rankings are or who's being boarded when. So the chances of you, picking up one of those jobs turns into like 1 in 4 with 2 out of 8 of you. So just make sure that if you're only picking one job, it's a job that has plenty of slots that you're interested in. I will advise that you guys pick additional jobs or consider additional options. Again, completely your prerogative to do what you got to do with your career. I'm just here to advise and assist. The Career Assistance Advisor. That's my title. All right. So other retraining options. I'm going to skim over these real quick, but give you valuable information. So 362626 is the Airman Retraining Program, so you guys can go check that out, and a lot of this stuff will be covered in there. Battlefield Airmen, there's a memorandum on the retraining link on MyPERS that breaks down this program. So we'll start with Battlefield Airmen. So outside of first-term Airman retraining and NCORP retraining, there is this Battlefield Airman thing that's out there. For first-term Airmen, if you want to be SEER, TAC-P, Combat Control, Pararescue, you do not have to wait till your retraining window in order to apply for retraining. You only have to serve half of your enlistment, and then you can go into Battlefield Airmen if that's what you decide. Now, maybe you washed out of that career field and wound up where you're at right now and you want to go back. When I was in Career Assistance Advisor training, the one thing that they stressed over and over again was that we will see those people come into our office, and the thing that we have to stress is that whatever it was that their breaking point was when they were in training before they ended up in their new career field, to make sure that they are sure that they are over it. Because if you're not, and you wash out again, you're going back to your career field, right? So, Battlefield Airmen. You can apply for that at any time as an exception to policy. I saw some, I'm not even going to discuss that. Anytime. You can apply for that at any time as an exception to policy. First term airmen, though, you have to serve half your enrollment. Shortfall requirements. Shortfall requirements in 362626. It's another program that's outside of FTA and NCORP. Shortfall in the AFI says that airmen can apply for this at any time. So if you go on MyPERS, retraining, look at tools, it's going to have a link that says shortfall requirements. It's going to have a whole list of AFSCs that are on there that are either historically hard to fill or have low retention rates. As long as that shortfall list as long as there are AFSCs on the retraining advisory that have in objectives that are on the shortfall requirements list, you can apply outside of the first term airman window and outside of NCORP at any time for a job that's on the shortfall list. Now, same kind of rules apply though for first term airmen. You need to make sure that you're halfway through your contract before you try and apply for a shortfall requirements job ahead of your retraining window. And I say that because an exception to policy letter has to get signed by your career field manager. So that means it's going to wherever the big chief sits for your AFSC, and he or she has to approve it. They have to approve it. Not only does it have to be approved there, but it also has to be approved by your gaining CFM that you're trying to retrain into. So if you're a first-term airman trying to shortfall requirements retrain early and you're halfway through, just know that CFM is probably going to be like, your window is like this far away, like maybe you should just wait. While you can submit the exception to policy, that doesn't mean that it's going to get approved. So for first-term airmen, just make sure you're thinking about that. If you missed your window, this might be an option for you to still be able to retrain. You're just restricted to what's on that list. Okay? NCOs, anytime. And there's also little nuances in there, like if you're on an SRB, right, you have to have served the minimum amount of time for your SRB in order for you to be eligible to apply for an exception to policy. Humanitarian retraining, this is something that I wish that I would have known about when I was a young lad. Wee staff sergeant, knee high to a grasshopper, right? I didn't know about this, so I'm an F-16 avionics troop by trade. Let's say that my family is close to Dover. There aren't F-16s at Dover Air Force Base. So in my mind, I'd have been like, oh man, there's no way I can get home. I just have to get to a 16 base that's super close and then just figure out how to make it work. Well, not true, okay? You can also apply for humanitarian retraining in conjunction with the humanitarian assignment. Now, humanitarian retraining and humanitarian assignments, the amount of documentation that it takes for those kinds of things to go through is immense. Not to discourage anyone if you're in those sets of circumstances. If you have them, 100% apply. But you don't need to worry about, oh, is my AFSC close to home, because you can apply to retrain for humanitarian reasons in conjunction with that assignment to get you to where you need to be. So supervisors, please take that with you that are listening, and maybe you can channel that up to a supervisor or down to an airman that might be going through something, or lateral to your peers. Take that with you. The last one that I'm going to talk about is disqualified airmen. So the target audience for this is NCO. You guys have TSU and know. You guys have eyes on everything. But you got the top secret clearance. You start bouncing checks, not paying your bills, or do things that jeopardize your security clearance, and you lose it. Now you're not qualified to have a TS. You still qualify for a secret for whatever reason, but you can't do your job. At that point, your commander is going to make a determination, because you're now disqualified because of whatever circumstance, you clearance, or you fail your CDCs, or can't upgrade in training. You're now a disqualified airman. Your command team and your commander is going to make a determination on whether or not the Air Force should retain you. So they're going to say, is Airman Susie or is Airman Johnny a good enough airman that they should stay, but we just got to get them into a different job that they're suited for. In those circumstances, there are two types of disqualified airmen. Ones that are disqualified for reasons within their control. I use the bill thing as an example. Losing a clearance, definitely within your control. Failing your CDCs, within your control. But if I'm an aircraft maintainer and I find out that I have an allergy to JPTS, which is the fuel for the U-2, I find that I'm allergic to that and I can't be around it, that's beyond my control. My command team will say, Sergeant Hawkins is worth retaining. We just can't use him on the flight line anymore for reasons beyond his control. If you're disqualified for reasons beyond your control, you can request up to 5 AFSCs, just like in a NCORP or First Term Airman Retraining, and AFPC will consider those choices based on what's available. If you are a disqualified airman for reasons within your control, that's a wrap, son. That is a wrap. The Air Force is not going to consider your choices. They're going to give you the first job that you're eligible for with the soonest class start date. For disqualified airmen, the Air Force has up to 180 days to place you once you get the disqualified airman AFSCs, which are 9 Alpha or a 9 Alpha 1. For more information about these programs, check my PERS retraining link, or look at 362626, the Airman Retraining Program. Sergeant White.
All right, everyone. So before we pass it off to y'all, let's remember what we went over. We went over some first-term airman retraining, the NCO retraining program, your retraining advisory, and the AFECD, as well as the additional retraining options like Senior Hawk just went into. So if you have any questions, now's the time to bring those to us, and we'll do what we can to help y'all real quick right here.